There is a moment, quiet, subtle, but seismic, when you realize that everything you've been holding onto has actually been holding onto you. That your need to control, to possess, to define, to be certain has become a prison. And in that moment, if you're brave enough, something extraordinary becomes possible: letting go. Alan Watts called this the most important shift a human being can make, not as a mystical escape, but as a return to reality. The raw, unfiltered, always changing reality that doesn't bend to your will but flows with its own mysterious rhythm. And the paradox is this: when you let go of control, you don't fall into chaos, you fall into truth. You fall into life. Right now, you may think that letting go means giving up, losing, failing. But what if it means waking up? What if the very thing you fear letting go of control is the path to the deepest freedom you'll ever know? We live in a society that worships control. We're taught from day one to grab the wheel, make things happen, master our fate. And there's value in intention, in commitment, in conscious action. But there's a fine line, and most of us cross it without knowing. We begin clinging to outcomes. We develop an obsession with certainty. We try to force life into a straight line when it was always meant to be a spiral. And suddenly, what began as self-discipline becomes self-imprisonment. We try to control people, how they think, how they respond, how they see us. We try to control emotions, pushing down the ones we don't like. We try to control time, stuffing more and more into each day, as if productivity could save us from mortality. But Alan Watts reminds us that this is a tragic misunderstanding of life. The more we try to catch the river, he said, the more it slips through our fingers.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
So let's ask something radical. What if control is the problem, not the solution? What if the life you're trying to build through force is already available through surrender? Not surrender as in giving up, but surrender as in joining in. Letting go is not about passivity. It's about alignment. It's about recognizing that you are not separate from the universe, you are a process within the universe. You're not the sculptor of reality. You're the clay, the hands, and the sculptor all at once. And the moment you let go of the illusion of control, you become free to flow, to move with life rather than against it. Think about it. When have you been most alive? Most connected? Most creative? Was it when you were rigid, anxious, controlling? Or was it when you were open, spontaneous, fully immersed in the moment? Watts believed that the key to life is not mastering it like a machine, but dancing with it like a lover. And all dance begins with surrender, with trust, with letting the music lead you. So here's a practical truth. You don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to hold everything together. You don't have to control people or time or outcomes. You only have to show up, fully, presently, honestly, and let life move through you. But letting go is not a one-time event. It's a constant practice, a breath-by-breath choice. When anger rises, can you let go of the story behind it and just feel the raw energy? When fear whispers, can you let go of the need to fix it and just be with it? When loss arrives, as it inevitably will, can you let go of your resistance and allow grief to cleanse you? Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply enough to stop clinging. It means you trust that life knows what it's doing, even when you don't. And this applies not just to emotions, but to identity. We cling to who we think we are: our names, our roles, our histories, our reputations. But who are you without those things? Who are you when you stop performing? When you stop proving? When you stop pretending to be someone? Watts would say, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. The self you think you are is a process, not a product. It's a verb, not a noun, and the tighter you grip it, the more you suffer. Letting go of identity doesn't mean erasing yourself. It means realizing that your true self is bigger than any label. You're not the mask. You're the awareness behind it, and that awareness is free. But here's the twist: letting go is terrifying, because it feels like death. And in a way it is. The death of who you thought you were, the death of certainty, the death of control. But Watts reminds us that death is not the end. It's transformation, it's renewal. The caterpillar must let go of the cocoon to become the butterfly. The seed must let go of its form to become a tree. And you must let go of your illusion to become real. So ask yourself, what am I afraid to let go of? And what would happen if I did? Let's bring this into the everyday. That you're having an argument. Your ego is shouting, win, defend, prove your point. But what if you let go of being right? What if you listened instead? You're chasing success, burning out, losing sleep. But what if you let go of the story that says you're only worthy if you achieve more? You're holding onto a relationship that's no longer alive. But what if you let go not out of anger, but out of love? Letting go is not weakness, it's the highest form of strength, because it requires trust, and trust is the foundation of presence. Watts compared the mind to a monkey always swinging from one thought to another. Letting go means we stop feeding the monkey. We stop following every thought, every fear, every desire. We become the witness, the stillness, the space in which everything moves. And from that space, we can finally see clearly. We see that life doesn't need our control. It needs our attention, our presence, our willingness to participate, not dominate. So here's the challenge. Can you let go of just one thing today? One expectation, one judgment, one old belief, one little piece of the armor you wear to protect yourself. It doesn't have to be everything at once. Start small and notice what happens. Notice the space that opens, the lightness, and the peace. Because that's what letting go really gives you: not more stuff, not more control, but space. Space to breathe, space to be, space to allow life to unfold in ways you never imagined. And in that space, something miraculous happens. You begin to trust, but not blindly, but deeply. You trust yourself. You trust life. You trust that even when things fall apart, something deeper is holding you. Something wiser, something real. And that trust becomes your foundation, your freedom, your power. So I'll leave you with this thought. What if the life you're seeking isn't something you achieve, but something you receive the moment you stop trying to hold on? What if all the effort, all the striving, all the clinging is the very thing keeping you from the peace that's already here? The freedom behind the fear, how surrender leads to true power. Let's be honest, surrender is one of the most misunderstood and feared ideas in our culture. We think it means giving up, backing down, or becoming weak. We think of surrender as a kind of defeat, a lowering of our defenses in a world we've been taught is constantly trying to break us down. But Alan Watts challenges this entire framework. He flips the narrative. He says, to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. That's what surrender really is. It's not about giving up, it's about giving in to the flow of life, to the truth of the present, breath, and to the deep intelligence that's far greater than anything your mind can calculate. And that's where the paradox lies. The moment you stop trying to control everything is the moment you become truly powerful. Because real power doesn't come from force. It comes from alignment. When you're in harmony with life rather than in opposition to it, you move differently. You speak from clarity instead of anxiety. You make decisions from intuition instead of panic. You relate to others from compassion, not ego. And this change isn't theoretical, it's visceral. You can feel it in your body, in your breath, in the way your shoulders drop, your jaw unclenches, your heart softens. The fear begins to loosen its grip. Why? Because fear thrives on the illusion of separation. It needs you to believe that you're alone, isolated, responsible for holding the whole world up by yourself. But when you let go, you experience something radically different: connection. You realize you're not floating in a universe, you are the universe, expressing itself in human form. But let's be clear, this realization doesn't mean you sit back passively and do nothing. That's not surrender. That's apathy. True surrender is active. It's engaged. It's about showing up fully without the burden of needing to control the outcome. It's about doing your part and then letting go of the rest. Watts often likened this to surfing. You don't control the ocean, you don't command the waves, but you learn to ride them. You learn to move with the current instead of against it. And the more you try to dominate the wave, the more likely you are to wipe out. But when you surrender to its rhythm, you find your balance, your flow, your power. So here's a practical question. What wave are you currently trying to control that you could instead learn to ride? Maybe it's a difficult relationship, or a career transition, or a phase of life that's asking for something new. Maybe it's grief, or uncertainty, or the aching unknown. Whatever it is, can you meet it not with resistance, but with curiosity? Can you ask, what is this moment asking of me, not as a burden, but as an invitation? Because every moment you resist is a moment you miss. And every moment you surrender to becomes a door into deeper presence. One of the most powerful effects of surrender is how it transforms your relationship with fear. When you let go, you stop needing to push fear away. You stop treating it like an enemy. Instead, you turn toward it. You listen, you feel it, and you discover, often to your surprise, that fear is not a monster. It's a signal, a messenger. It's pointing you to the edge of your comfort zone, to the place where growth happens. And when you stop clinging to safety, you stop shrinking from life. You begin to expand. You step into the unknown not with dread, but with wonder. You realize that the unknown is not a threat, it's where all the magic happens. But you can't fake surrender. You can't pretend to let go while secretly gripping tighter. Life knows, your body knows. True surrender comes from trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust that even when things don't go according to plan, they're still unfolding according to a deeper intelligence. And that trust builds over time. It grows with practice. But every time you let go and don't fall apart, every time you release control and something beautiful still happens, your nervous system learns it's safe. It's okay. I don't have to hold the universe together with my thoughts. And this creates a ripple effect. When you surrender, others feel it. Your presence becomes more grounded, more open, more magnetic. You stop trying to manipulate and instead you inspire. Because surrender radiates peace. And that peace is contagious. It changes the energy in a room. It makes others feel safe enough to soften, to open, to be real. That's leadership. That's power. Not dominance, but influence. Not control, but coherence. Letting go also means letting go of the outcome. We spend so much of our time obsessing over how things will turn out. Will I succeed? Will I be loved? Will it all work out? But what invites us to consider something radical. The outcome is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is the process, the presence, the participation. When you let go of needing a specific result, you become free to enjoy the journey. You start to see life not as a problem to be solved, but as a mystery to be lived. And that shift is profound. It turns every step into a dance, every breath into a prayer, every moment into a miracle. So let me ask you this. What are you holding on to that no longer serves you? And what would happen if you let it go not tomorrow, but right now? Would you lose yourself? Or would you finally find yourself beneath all the layers of striving and control? This is not a question of philosophy. It's a question of lived experience. Letting go is not something you understand with your mind. It's something you feel in your bones. And here's the final paradox. The more you let go, the more you receive. Not because the universe rewards surrender like a transaction, but because surrender removes the blockages. It clears the channel. It reconnects you to the flow of life that was always there, waiting for you to stop gripping so tightly. And in that flow, you find everything you were looking for: peace, clarity, love, joy, not because you chased them, but because you opened to them. So I'll leave you with this final reflection. What if your greatest strength is not your ability to hold on, but your willingness to let go? What if the thing you're trying to control is the very thing that's asking to be released? What if surrender is not the end of the story, but the beginning of your real life? Let go, trust the wave, and watch what happens. Here's the most mind-bending realization Alan Watts ever offered us, the one that slips through the cracks of ordinary thinking and reshapes everything. But you were never holding anything. That desperate grip you've maintained on your future, your identity, your worth, your relationships, even your life itself, was never actually securing anything real. It was an illusion, a performance, a dream of control. And when you finally let go, when you stop pretending to be the master of a universe that was never yours to manage, you don't fall into chaos. You fall into truth. You fall into presence. You fall into the only reality that has ever existed, this moment, right now, as it is, without needing to be anything else. This is not a poetic metaphor, it's a fundamental shift in perception. Alan Watts didn't teach us to let go just to feel better. He taught us to let go because holding on is what creates suffering. Not the events themselves, not the changes or losses or unknowns, but our resistance to them. Our belief that by tightening our grip, we can stop the river from flowing. But the river doesn't care. It keeps moving. And the tighter we hold on, the more we struggle, and the more we sink. What Watts revealed is that the very idea of control is a myth. We don't control our thoughts, they arise. We don't control our emotions, they surge and fall like waves. We don't control other people, or time, or even our own heartbeat. So what are we actually holding? A story, a belief, a mental construct. And the moment we see that clearly, the whole illusion begins to dissolve. This is where the return to presence begins. Because when you stop trying to control a future that doesn't exist, you wake up to the present that does. When you stop clinging to who you think you're supposed to be, you meet who you actually are. And that meeting is the most intimate, life-altering event you will ever experience. It's not found in a book or a plan or a goal. It's found in the silence between thoughts, in the breath you're taking right now, in the sound of the world around you that you've tuned out in pursuit of more. Letting go is not about loss, it's about revelation. It's about discovering that beneath all the striving and grasping, you were already whole. But don't mistake this for passivity. This is not about giving up on life. It's about engaging with it more fully. When you're no longer distracted by the illusion of control, you have energy for what matters, for creativity, for connection, for presence. You become more alive, not less, more responsive, not more detached, because you're no longer operating from fear. You're operating from truth, and that is the most grounded, powerful way to live. Watts often spoke of the dance between form and emptiness. He pointed out that a cup is only useful because of the empty space inside it. But that music is made not just of notes, but of the silence between them. In the same way, your life becomes meaningful not because of what you control, but because of what you allow. The spaciousness, the surrender, the flow. And when you allow life to be what it is, rather than what you think it should be, you discover a radical peace. Not the peace that comes from everything going your way, but the peace that comes from no longer needing it to. So let's reflect deeper. What have you been gripping that was never really yours to begin with? Is it an expectation? A version of yourself you think the world wants? A past you can't rewrite? A future you can't predict? What's the thing you keep circling in your mind, hoping that if you just think about it enough, it will finally make sense or feel safe? Now ask yourself, has it worked? Has control ever given you the peace you're looking for? Or has it just delayed the moment when you finally exhale and say, I surrender? And when you do surrender, when you stop fighting life and start listening to it, something astonishing happens. The anxiety begins to fade. The noise quiets. You realize that you don't need to add anything to this moment to make it enough, because you are enough, not the polished version, not the future success story. You, exactly as you are, breathing, aware, alive. What's new that the essence of all spiritual practice is not addition, but subtraction, not becoming something more, but removing the layers that obscure what's already true. And what's true is that you are not a separate self fighting against the universe. You are the universe, in temporary human form, experiencing itself from a unique perspective. And to let go is to return to that truth. But let's not pretend it's always easy. Letting go can feel like dying, because in a way it is. It's the death of the illusion, the death of the ego's belief that it's in charge, the death of the false self you've spent years trying to perfect. And yet, just like the seasons turn, just like the leaves fall and make way for spring, this death is always followed by rebirth. What dies is the illusion. What's born is presence. Real, grounded, embodied presence. But the kind that doesn't need to prove anything or hold anything, but it simply is. And in that being you find everything you thought you had to chase. Watts would remind us that life is not a problem to be solved, it's a reality to be experienced. And experience only happens now. Not in the mind's projections, not in the what if, not in the endless reruns of the past. But it happens in the unspeakable, ungraspable, ever-unfolding moment of now. And every time you let go of the illusion of control, you step deeper into that moment. You become the dance, the laugh, the tear, the silence, the thunder. You become what you always were: pure awareness, playing the game of being human. So here's the final challenge. Can you live the rest of today as if you were holding nothing? Can you meet each moment not with resistance, but with openness? Can you trust that life never needed your control, only your presence? Because that's the real letting go, not dropping everything and walking into the mountains, but dropping the mental grip while still showing up fully, washing the dishes with your whole attention, speaking to a friend with your whole heart, walking through the world not as a controller, but as a participant in a much bigger dance. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find that in letting go, you didn't lose anything. You gained everything. You gained access to the miracle of now. You gained the ability to respond instead of react. You gained the stillness beneath the storm. You gained the freedom to be as you are, with nothing to fix, nothing to fear, and nothing to prove. So let go. Not later, not when it's convenient. Now, because now is all there ever is. And in this now, you are free.